It's kind of funny when it comes to the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe, or the DCU, or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's always a unique and potentially controversial opinion when you talk about what your favorite movies are from the DCEU because I think everybody has their own opinions. I think everybody has their own views and thoughts of what their favorites are and what their least favorites are, which is true for everything, sure. But the DCEU specifically, it's a little more diehard, it's a little more anger inducing. There's a lot more arguing amongst the fans, I've noticed, when it comes to this franchise. So I will tread lightly when talking about this. This is my top favorite DCEU movies, ranking the order. There are 13 films, goddamn. Let's start with the very, very bottom, the shittiest DC movie, in my opinion, Black Adam. I know. Kick the rock while he's down. Look, there is a big part of me that appreciates The Rock's hard work, that appreciates how long and how hard it was for The Rock to get this movie made. He was first announced as Black Adam and announced in producing this film before Man of Steel came out. So it's kind of wild, right? And so many things changed over the years as far as management goes, as far as who was behind the scenes. But The Rock did not give up. He, for whatever reason, was passionate about this character and this project. Watching it, though, it falls apart for so many reasons. One, Black Adam should not be introduced in his own movie. I always felt like he should have been introduced first as a villain to Shazam, and then maybe you can have a spin-off. Or then maybe you can do something else in another film that gets into his backstory or tries to present him as an anti-hero. I don't think this way of doing it really makes sense. What the fuck? Rumors about The Rock trying to muscle his way in behind the scenes and steer the universe in his own direction, shape it around himself. I will say that The Rock wanting to bring back Henry Cavill as Superman is probably the only redeeming thing that I can say about this movie. Although, because it happens in a shitty film, well, it negates that as well. But the writing, the plot, the characters, them trying at humor that I didn't think worked hardly at all. Introducing the Justice Society, I thought in theory is cool, but timeline wise doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. This movie could have been epic. This movie could have been next level. Number 12, Wonder Woman 1984, which kind of surprised me that it was this low. Not because, well, I know most people hate this movie. Most people think this movie just absolutely sucks. But I always thought that maybe I liked it more than most people. Not that I liked it in general. I definitely have issues with it. I definitely have problems with it. But I didn't realize how much problems I had until I ranked it. And I said, yeah, this is probably where this ranks. Following up to the first Wonder Woman is very difficult. And I think having Patty Jenkins be more in the forefront, not just directing, but writing as well, I don't know what happened here. I don't know how it fell apart. The whole plot of her wishing to bring back Steve Trevor, but it wasn't really just bringing back Steve Trevor. It was Steve Trevor being there inside the body of like her neighbor. And so the neighbor loses himself if he had a job or a wife or a kid, any other life. That's thrown out the window because it's Steve Trevor possessing his body and going around doing things. It's such an odd choice. Also, Kristen Wiig, who I love in general, I think she's very funny, but also can do dramatic things as well. I like the idea and the introduction of her character. I think there was some interesting stuff early on, but once it devolves into her becoming Cheetah, and Cheetah has been one of my favorite Wonder Woman villains just because she's different. She's unique. Her abilities make her a different kind of threat. But this didn't look great. The CGI looked bad. The design didn't even look all that good. And Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord has always been sort of an underrated villain in the DC universe, especially because, well, Lex Luthor exists. So who gives a shit about Maxwell Lord? But Pedro Pascal is such a great actor. It's almost insane that you forget that he was even in this movie. Number 11, Aquaman. I am still in disbelief that Aquaman made over $1 billion. Because I'm not going to say this movie's the worst thing ever, but it's painfully generic. It's painfully paint by numbers. The writing just seems so bare bones and not that special. I think Jason Momoa does have charisma and he does have something here. Amber Heard, I don't know if I can look at her and, well, sure, she's hot. I can still say that. But I don't know if I can really want to see her in more of these big level films. I'm almost kind of impressed by how much story they put into this film. So not only is it the origin and backstory of the Aquaman character, but we also have his brother, Ocean Master, being the main villain. But because James Wan probably thought, well, fuck, I don't know if I'll ever get to make an Aquaman sequel, given the state of the DC universe, especially around the time that this was made. So why not just throw everything and the kitchen sink into this one film? So let's also introduce Black Manta. And yes, Black Manta, first of all, great actor. But Black Manta, the suit does look a little ridiculous. I just appreciate that they went so comic book accurate that I kind of got a kick out of that. Number 10, Suicide Squad. I wanted to like this movie so much when it first came out. I loved the idea of the Suicide Squad. I can't believe that this was like, what, DC's third movie or so into their universe. It just seemed like an odd choice. But there are aspects of this movie that I do like. Some of the music choices, some of the hard edge that they try to bring into it, even though it's not rated R. And as bad as Jared Leto's Joker is, and he's bad, he's terrible, he's one of the worst parts of the movie, there are moments of seeing him and Harley Quinn's backstory. For the first time in live action, I'm probably geeking out way too much over that. It's one of my favorite comic book stories in general from the animated series. I love everything about it. So it wasn't done great. It was kind of rushed through. We probably could have taken the time to set this up and built this up much better. And I also don't like how we get too much of Joker and Harley. Look at how great their relationship is. Sure, they're crazy and they're criminals, but look how much Joker loves her. No, Joker uses her. Joker treats her like shit. And they didn't fully capture that as well as I would like. Margot Robbie is great, though. Will Smith is a very interesting choice for Deadshot. And Viola Davis just fucking kills it as Amanda Waller. But the Enchantress, my God, Cara Delevingne, I feel so bad for her because there was no winning with the Enchantress character. When she's doing the belly dancing I don't fucking know how this movie fell apart. Number 9, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. This is another movie that probably should have been better than it actually was. It was a follow-up to a film that surprised all of us, so maybe we were expecting too much. Maybe we did want too much from its sequel. I thought Zachary Levi, a little bit of a downgrade here as far as how likable he was. He felt like he was trying too hard to be funny and be likable. And the disconnect between him and the younger Billy just really bothersome, especially in this film. I mean, they don't act like or seem like the same characters at all. The story's a little all over the place with the villains. I mean, they are interesting as far as how long they've been around and how much the sisters don't get along. But I don't think I really cared all that much. I got a kick out of seeing Shazam fight a dragon because that was a little different. I also got a kick out of seeing some of the cameos that they were able to get into this movie. Number 8, Birds of Prey, another movie that I think I like a little more than most people. Once again, Margot Robbie in the lead role. I think she gets a lot to do here, a lot of shine, but it's too quick. It's too fast. We barely got to see her with the Joker or just as a villain in live action. It felt like they just wanted to rush to the point where Harley Quinn is now an anti-hero, or Harley does more good than bad. And I like that version of Harley, but I think Harley has to get through a lot of bad shit. She has to go through a lot of stuff before we get to a point where she's here. The introduction of the Birds of Prey group. Interesting that this movie's called Birds of Prey, but it's really a Harley Quinn movie. Also, the title being The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I know it's supposed to be silly and goofy, but I don't think general audiences got it. I don't think anybody really understood what this movie was. Coming in at number 7, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. This movie should be number 1. On paper, realistically, and my level of hype when this first got announced at Comic-Con, when the trailers first came out, I mean, it was insane how built up and hyped up this movie was, and it just did not deliver. It couldn't deliver on what this could have been and should have been. Even if I say that the movie's okay, even if I say that the movie is watchable, it should have been way better than that. It should be one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And it just doesn't deliver on that. The beginning is certainly interesting with Ben Affleck's Batman being there at the end of events from Man of Steel, but the motivation of why Batman wants to kill Superman isn't cohesive, doesn't fully make a lot of sense. There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of things that you might think you know what's going on, and then the story contradicts a lot of what's going on. This Batman doesn't like that Superman is potentially a killer, but this Batman also goes around and kills multiple people. Huh? And this is a follow-up to the Man of Steel film, but it does not feel like a Superman movie at all. He doesn't even feel like he's co-starring. He feels so much in the background. He almost feels like more in the background than Wonder Woman is, who is just being introduced in this particular movie. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is terrible. I can go on and on for days of how bad and how much I dislike him. He truly is probably one of the worst parts of this. But then you have Doomsday. Doomsday is such a force of nature, such a path of destruction, and he means so much to the history and lore of Superman that I kind of can't believe that they just threw him in at the very end, and they even do the death of Superman, which I didn't feel was earned. I should have felt more about than I actually did. Number 6, Shazam, the first Shazam movie. Like I said, this was a big surprise as far as how fun it was, how enjoyable it was. Maybe it came at the right time because the rest of the DC universe was very dark and was very serious, so it was refreshing to get a character that didn't take himself too serious. I thought the energy and the writing was very good. I thought some of the music was great. And I also thought the character of Freddy, who is the sidekick, he's one of the more likable characters in the Shazam films, and he's somebody that I almost want to follow more than the main character, Billy. Number 5, Justice League. And I'm specifically talking about the Snyder Cut, because if I was talking about the Joss Whedon Justice League, that would be a get the fuck out of here, and that would definitely be at the bottom of the list, probably even worse than Black Adam. Would it be? Yeah, probably. But the Snyder Cut, at least it took the time, and I know maybe some people would say too much time because it's 4 fucking hours, but I do appreciate that it took the time to introduce each character, like Flash, like Aquaman, like Cyborg especially. Cyborg got so much more to do, so much more backstory when you're talking about a character like Darkseid coming to take over the world. I mean, that is crazy stakes. You have the resurrection of Superman that also got treated in a much better fashion. I loved seeing Superman wear the black suit, something that I never thought I would see in live action, and possibly the only time we will get this. Number 4, Man of Steel. For the longest time, I used to say Man of Steel was the best DCEU movie just because of how well they told Superman's origin, or how different this origin in particular was. I love seeing the beginning, the destruction of Krypton looking very different, Russell Crowe as Jor-El. And because I've sat through 10 seasons of Smallville, because the original Superman movie covered this already, I love that we skip the origin, we skip him as a baby, we get some of that in flashbacks, But for the most part, this is about Clark Kent going out there and trying to find himself, trying to find what kind of hero he is supposed to be, he is meant to be. Sure, I have some issues with the death of Jonathan Kent and even the way Jonathan Kent was portrayed. The big battle at the end, most people would complain that it's too much. It's crazy destruction. So many people probably died. And I can't really argue that. But I'll never forget being in the theater, first time seeing this and being so overwhelmed in a good way, so blown away by the level of action in a Superman movie because I'd never gotten that before, especially the last movie, Superman Returns, where I was begging for Superman to just punch something. And this time they gave it to me. So it's hard for me to complain about that. Number 3, The Suicide Squad. If there's any indication that the DC Universe is in good hands, it was James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Talk about taking what the first Suicide Squad movie did and making it better, making it bigger, and really establishing early on that any character can go, that nobody's safe, and that people will die, which is the whole point of this goddamn squad. Also, I thought the writing was sharper, the humor was so goddamn funny, and I thought a lot of the actors got to shine. I'm talking about Idris Elba, I'm talking about even Joel Kinnaman, who I didn't think was all that special in the first movie, but I really appreciated his character more this time around. Also, John Cena, who I didn't know if Cena had it in him to be a really dynamic actor, a good actor to the point where we got him here, but he was. He was really good. And we also, because of this, got a great spin-off show with the Peacemaker. And then the villain, this big, ugly thing. First of all, this is a creature that I remember seeing in the Justice League cartoons, so I never thought we would ever see this in live action, ever. At number 2, The Flash. Sure, is this script, is this plot a little all over the place? A little maybe hard to follow if you don't already know The Flash's backstory and origin? Yes. Is this movie a little rushed at points? Absolutely. And is Ezra Miller very controversial? Yes, I can talk about that all day long. But I appreciated how this movie did just go for it, did just say that, hey, this universe might be going away. This might be the last time that we get to kind of go all balls to the wall, bring back Michael Keaton, who was fucking awesome, amazing, introduce a Supergirl that hasn't been in this universe yet, and really make an impression. And also just be able to do things as far as CGI and special effects go that the DC movies really hasn't gotten a chance to do. I'm talking about time travel, I'm talking about the Speed Force, and I'm talking about just having so many surprises and Easter eggs that I'm still very shocked that they had the balls to go the places that they go. At number 1, though, for what I feel like is the best DCEU movie, Wonder Woman from 2017. This is also a big part of me being so surprised by how good this was, how this being a period piece, similar to Captain America the First Avenger, was able to take its time in developing Wonder Woman's backstory, taking its time on introducing Themyscira, the island of warriors, and seeing how all of that came about. The biggest scene that stands out to me is No Man's Land, where Wonder Woman just says, fuck it. I'm going to be the badass. I'm going to make it across. I don't care how many people are shooting. I don't care how many obstacles are up against me. Clearly, there's a metaphor here, and I was all there for it. I thought the humor worked very well, also being balanced with the seriousness. Sure, maybe the third act falls apart slightly. You have 2 villains that are so goddamn goofy and out of place for the majority of this. And sure, maybe Ares doesn't exactly live up to what he could have been if handled better. But I think everything else is so strong. I think the character dynamics between Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor and the ending scene between them is so much more heart-wrenching that this movie stuck with me. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my list and what are some of your favorite DCEU films? What's your least favorite? Which ones do you think absolutely suck? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.